Good morning/afternoon, everyone. I'm excited to welcome you to this presentation on the foundations and applications of behavior analysis. Today, we'll explore the essential principles, philosophies, and practical approaches that form the backbone of behavioral science. Together, we'll gain a deeper understanding of how behavior analysis can be applied in various settings to create meaningful change. Let's dive in. When we talk about the goals of behavior analysis as a science, the first key point is to describe behavior and environmental events. This means providing a clear, objective account of what is happening, both in terms of observable actions and the surrounding conditions that might influence them. Next, behavior analysis aims to predict future behavior. By identifying consistent patterns and the relationships between behavior and environmental factors, we can anticipate how someone might act in similar situations down the line. Moving further, one of the most impactful goals is to control behavior. This involves deliberately manipulating certain variables to bring about desired changes, ultimately improving outcomes for individuals and society as a whole. All of these goals come together to reinforce behavior analysis as both an empirical, evidence-based discipline and an applied science focused on real-world relevance. Let's explore the core philosophical assumptions that form the foundation of behavior analysis. First, we have selectionism. This principle suggests that behavior evolves through consequences, much like how natural selection works in biology. Essentially, behaviors that lead to positive outcomes are more likely to be repeated, reinforcing adaptive actions over time. Next is determinism, which means all behavior has specific causes and follows predictable patterns. Because of this, we can systematically study behaviors and even anticipate future actions based on these lawful relationships. Then there's parsimony, a preference for the simplest explanation that fully accounts for the observed data. This helps us avoid unnecessary complexity and keeps our understanding clear and efficient. Finally, pragmatism emphasizes practical and effective solutions. It prioritizes interventions that actually work in influencing behavior, focusing on real-world results rather than just theoretical ideas. Together, these assumptions guide how we analyze and change behavior in meaningful ways. When we talk about the domains of behavior analytic practice, there are several key areas to understand. First, we have radical behaviorism, which is the underlying philosophy. It considers all behavior, not just what we can see, but also private events like thoughts and feelings, as part of observable behavior. Next is the experimental analysis of behavior. This involves basic research where scientists conduct controlled experiments to uncover fundamental principles of behavior. Moving from research to real life, applied behavior analysis, or ABA, takes these principles and applies them to address important social behaviors in everyday settings. Professional practice then focuses on using behavior analysis in practical environments like therapy, education, and clinical work to help individuals improve their lives. Finally, translational research acts as a bridge, taking findings from the lab and adapting them into practical interventions, while also assessing how effective these interventions are in real-world applications. Each domain plays a crucial role in advancing our understanding and use of behavior analysis. Let's go over some key terms in behavior analysis that are fundamental to understanding how behavior is studied and modified. First, we have behavior, which refers to any observable action by an organism. For instance, a child raising their hand to ask a question is a clear example of behavior. A response is a specific instance of that behavior. Say, pressing a button once during an experiment. Then we have a stimulus, which is any environmental event or condition that influences behavior, like a light turning on to signal the start of a task. Next, reinforcement, and reinforcers play a crucial role. Reinforcement is a process that increases the likelihood of a behavior happening again in the future. For example, when someone receives praise after performing correctly, that praise acts as reinforcement. Reinforcers are the specific consequences that strengthen behavior. They can be tangible things like treats or intangible like social approval. Lastly, punishers and maintenance are important concepts. Punishers are consequences that decrease the likelihood of behavior occurring. An example would be a timeout following inappropriate behavior. Maintenance refers to the continued occurrence of behavior over time, even when the initial reinforcement conditions change. Understanding these terms helps us grasp how behaviors are encouraged, discouraged, and sustained over time. Here we compare two important types of behavior control: rule-governed and contingency-shaped behavior. Rule-governed behavior happens when our actions are guided by verbal instructions or explicit rules. For example, following written assembly instructions without having prior experience assembling the item. We rely on what we've been told rather than trial and error. On the other hand, contingency-shaped behavior develops through direct interaction with the environment and its consequences. A good example is learning to avoid a hot stove after touching it once and feeling pain. This type of behavior is shaped by real experiences rather than verbal direction. Understanding the difference helps us see how people learn and adapt in different situations.